Unfortunately, we have to talk about the basketball Buckeyes last night, going on the road to Rutgers and coming away with a loss. And on Monday night, on our debut edition of Basketball Bucks Line, our basketball analyst for 105.7 The Zone, Tony White, I said to you, Tony, that if they lose Wednesday, okay, there's a red flag. Well, they lost Wednesday. What was your thought as you were watching that game? What ultimately led to Ohio State's demise against a team that they clearly should have beaten?
Well, it was clearly they came out of the locker room not ready to play. I mean, that was clear. I think they just looked flat to me. They looked like a team that, thought or at least wasn't mentally ready to go out there and give 100% and 110%, execute the game plan, bust their hump just like they were playing against Michigan State. They looked a little bit like they were out there, with their heads still back at the Michigan State loss and, what they let go because they didn't play the last 4 minutes very well, the Michigan State game. And like they didn't really have to think too hard. They could have their head still thinking about Michigan State because they're just playing Rutgers. And they came out and they played that way. And then they kind of brought themselves back a lot because Rutgers is not a very good team, and Ohio State's more physically talented. And then, they got back in that funk. I thought the zone from Rutgers was really effective to take Caleb Weston away offensively, and the abysmal shooting from the perimeter by C.J. Jackson continues for this team. So you throw all, and Keyshawn Woods was no better. In fact, he again played a pretty bad game. This is the second bad game in a row that we've seen from Keyshawn Woods. And, when you throw all that together, that cake gets baked as a big fat L at Rutgers. And that's going to be a bad, you talk about quality wins in tournament time, this is a bad loss. And the committee's going to note, bad loss at Rutgers.
Yeah, I don't want to push the panic button too much because it is one game, and a team like this is probably going to lose some. It's just that it's Rutgers. I mean, it's not losing at Northwestern, it's Rutgers. So that bothers me, but it's still early. They're 2-2. They're 12-3. They're still fine. If they somehow turn around and won at Iowa Saturday and they won 1-1 in the week, you say, all right, that's fine. But I guess my overreaction self, though, Tony, goes from thinking about this team going into the Michigan State game as, if they win this game, they're a legitimate Big Ten title contender, to 2 games later thinking, man, are they going to make the tournament? I mean, that's honestly where my head has gone in the matter of 5 days. Am I overreaching?
A little bit. And I think I will say this. I think it's okay to be really concerned about this loss. I mean, and what it says to the broader point of what is this team really. Because, again, we talked about this, Matt, with a young team like this, playing so many freshmen and playing freshman guards especially who have the ball in their hands so many times. And we've seen Keyshawn Woods, at times he's been great, and at times he's made lousy decisions like a freshman guard. Sometimes he plays like a freshman guard. So when you throw all that together, we don't know what this team is going to look like come March. I mean, this is a team that's played very well in November and December. But February and March are completely different time periods than November and December. If you're the same team you were in November and December, when you get to February and March, well, you're not going to be very good.
Right.
And you're going to lose a lot of games because everybody else is getting better. And the question is, are these guys going to get better? And there's, when you're relying on a bunch of freshmen, especially to play the guard position, you tend to get tired mentally and physically, and you tend to start hitting walls, and you tend to start making more mistakes. I'm not saying that the Rutgers loss is because they hit that wall. I'm just saying that, it's a warning sign that this team, it could lose that game and lose it the way they did. And, and does that tell us that this team is starting to hit a patch where they're not progressing as they need to be the team we want them to be come March, which is one that can fight for the Big Ten championship, the Big Ten tournament championship, and go to the NCAA tournament and make some noise.
You know what's interesting, and I don't disagree with you, because there's so many new pieces in this team that it's not surprising to me that they could have ups and downs. I said last night, or tweeted last night, that I think there's still going to be some positive surprises from this team, but there probably are some more negative ones, because that's just with as many new pieces and as I'm figuring out along the way that it may happen. But you mentioned the youth on the team. It felt like, to me, it was the veterans that let him down last night. And I don't want to pile too much on C.J. Jackson, but 4 for 13 and 2 for 9. Like Luther Muhammad, I thought was their best player at times last night, and he was a freshman. Dwayne Washington, he was a little bit up and down. I agree with you. But some of the veterans, and Andre Wesson didn't have a very good game. It felt to me like that was more of the veterans letting him down last night than it was the freshmen.
Well, I agree with you, but the problem is once the veterans are having bad games, and sometimes you're going to have a bad game, there is nobody to come in and pick them up. You're playing 5, and then some of those 5 aren't working. Let's get somebody in there to play well, and no. I mean, Dwayne Washington made a couple shots, but other than that, didn't really do anything. And Keyshawn Woods was bad.
Yep.
C.J. Jackson was pretty bad throughout the course of that game. There was nobody that Chris Holtmann could reach down to on the bench and say, get in there and pick up his level of play. That's a problem. You need to have people who can pick him up when he's been playing poorly, because he's been playing poorly more often than he's been playing well in C.J. Jackson. And Andre Wesson, I love the kid on defense. I love the kid's toughness. I love his team mentality, but it's time for him to start scoring some points. I mean, he's a junior. You can't go out there and go 1-5 against Rutgers, 1 for 5 from the floor against Rutgers. I mean, you just can't. You're a junior. You got to score more than 4 points against Rutgers, because Ohio State cannot have Caleb Wesson score 18 points and then everybody else kind of drift around in the low double digits. A couple other guys in the low double digits and expect to win. They scored 61 points against a very average Rutgers defense. I mean, that ain't getting you anywhere in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and 2.5 minutes left, they make the run and they go up 3 and they don't score again down the stretch. So that was obviously troubling. Basketball analyst Tony White, after Ohio State's 64-61 loss to Rutgers as they fall to 12-3 and now 2-2 in the Big Ten. You mentioned Andre Weston and needing him to score. I thought one of the key possessions, they had that 3-point lead, then Rutgers cut it to 1. Ohio State calls a timeout to set it up. Rutgers comes out in zone, and I know Andre didn't mean to do it. It clearly didn't mean to do it, but he throws a pass that is just way wide of Luther Muhammad for a turnover. And in a close game like that on the road, when that happened, they were still ahead. I was like, uh-oh. Like, it just felt like they were going to start to let the game get away. The execution, which with Coach Holtmann's teams down the stretch is usually really, really good. That had nothing to do with Chris Holtmann, though. That was a player error. They just didn't execute very well last night.
And Matt, you just can't make that play as a junior. You can't. I mean, you just can't.
Yeah.
You're on the court in that situation as a junior because you're not going to make that play.
Yeah, he trusts
That's
you.
That's why you're out there.
Yep. Otherwise, you can put Dwayne in there or something like that. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. And okay, maybe a freshman's going to make that play, but you put Andre Wesson out there because you expect that he's not going to make that play. You not only do you expect it as the coach, you demand that your juniors do not make that play. That was simply a mental lapse. There is no reason for him to make that pass without knowing that his guy was there. He's done it 100,000 times in his Ohio State career, in practice and in games. There is no reason except for a mental lapse for him to be making that pass, and he can't do it. Can't do it. That was perhaps because when it happened, Matt, I guarantee you, everybody on that bench went, uh-oh.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, I did. As I said, I did. I was like, oh, man, you can't make that play. One other thing, I saw one of the comments that, social media sometimes gets crazy. And one one of the comments I saw that bothered me last night was that this was Chris Holtmann's worst coached game since he's been at Ohio State. And I was like, I did not see that. I didn't see Chris Holtmann coach a bad game. I saw players let him down. I mean, what would your take be on that? Do you think there was any coaching gaffes or something last night that might have cost Ohio State, or was this one on the players?
Coaches are not responsible for one game lapses of focus and effort and mental preparedness. They're just not. They are responsible if that one game event becomes 4, 5, 8, 10, or we see it more often than once. You know, it's just the nature of a game, especially with a young team, is that you're gonna have a clunker every now and then. It shouldn't be regular. It should be rare, but you're going to have a clunker. And the only hope from the coaching staff is that we can fight our way through the clunker and get the win. They didn't get the win here. The coaching staff, their job right now is to make sure that that clunker does not happen again anytime in the near future. If we start seeing more of them, and they start coming regularly and in bunches, then it's okay to start yelling at the coaching staff about what are you doing to coach these guys out of this, because then it's on them, not necessarily the players.
All right, Tony. Hopefully they can bounce back Saturday. That's going to be a presumably more difficult game against a much better team.
Matt, Saturday is now a huge basketball game for this team.
Yep.
Huge.
Yep. And it's winnable, but I think they seem like the kind of team that can beat anybody in this league on a given day, but they can lose to anybody in this league on a given day.
We need to see what Ohio State's made of. They need to put their foot in the ground, turn, and fight.
Yep.
If we see that and they get a win, okay, we can walk away from that and say, all right, don't want to lose to Rutgers, but at least this team fought back. If they don't and they get whipped up on, now it's okay to start flipping the cover on the panic button and thinking about pushing it.
All right. We'll talk about it at length on Monday on Basketball Bucks Line. Tony, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Matt.